Okay Reddit, time to brag. What is the best most good-hearted thing you have done lately? My roommate, and very close friend, graduated from college and got a card plus $200 cash from her biological parents. She was adopted, so getting anything from her biological parents was a huge deal. Something happened when she got home, and she somehow lost the $200 and nearly broke down because she was so upset. So I went to the ATM, took out $200, and put it in the spot where she thought she left it. She was so excited to get it back and started crying because she was so happy to find her gift from her parents. She still doesn't know it was me. I told my employees what their year-end bonuses would be in November, so they had a number they could budget around. Then I doubled it on the actual day. My company sort of did that this year. We got $0 bonuses. My boss has a son named Brody. I walked into her office and she was clearly upset. She told me that Brody didn't want to go to school that morning because no one liked him and he had no friends. This was a few days before Halloween and the teacher did this bulls thing where students, second graders, could pay a quarter and buy their friends these Halloween themed treats, fill out a from, and then the teacher handed them out. Brody bought them for his friends, but received none. It upset my boss that her son truly felt like he had no friends, or anyone that cared about him. That night I drove to the grocery store, bought a huge decorative Halloween candy basket and filled it with candy, caramel apples, cookies, etc. I wrote a short card for Brody telling him how awesome he was and signed it the Great Pumpkin. Had my friend drop me at their house. I left it on the porch and ran. He kept the motor running and we sped off. Boss came in the next day and told everyone what happened and how sweet it was. She spent weeks questioning people in her family in the office to figure out who the Great Pumpkin was, but I have remained anonymous. Freaking candygrams. Every year I was hoping that I would receive one. Just one. Other kids got bucketfuls. Some got 10, 5, but I got none. Literally, none. I'm an insurance agent and there is this one old lady that comes in all the time. She looks like she's had it rough. Her hair is wiry and grey. Her teeth are yellowed. She's very thin. And she often wears things you can tell came secondhand. But every time she comes in she has a smile on her face. We often joke around and have bonded over the past 3 years. Recently she came in to pay her auto insurance and when she went to pay it, she realized she didn't have enough money. The older lady that works in my office is a little crotchety and wouldn't take kindly to us making an exception to pay the remainder. So, unfortunately her auto insurance cancelled. Then her renter's insurance cancelled. I tried calling her on the day before each of the cancellations to see if she could make something work because my hands are tied once they actually cancel. But both times she didn't have any other options. A few days went by and I felt really guilty that I didn't just pay the bills for her. I was especially upset about her auto insurance because I knew she had a line on her vehicle, which would put her in trouble with her lien holder because she let it cancel. So, one day she came in and wanted to start up her auto insurance again thankfully, and again she was short money, but I was determined to not let this happen again. I saw how much she was short and said oops, I made a mistake, the actual total is, and she looked so relieved. I paid the difference. I live near Buffalo, NY and it's freaking cold here. So after we were done and she was walking out the door, I noticed that she didn't get in a vehicle or anything. She was just walking towards the street. She was wearing a thin shirt a light jacket over it, pajama pants, and Crocs socks. She lived nearly 5 miles down the other way and she's like 67. I called after her and asked her if she was planning on walking, which she said she was. So, I told her that I would drive her home. I did and she was so thankful, constantly thanking me the whole way to her house. My heart just broke for her. This was all just before Christmas, so for the few next days I thought of almost nothing else. My heart just ached for her. So, I decided that I wanted to do something special for her for Christmas. I figured out where she did her grocery shopping, which was Walmart. So, I got her a $60 Walmart gift card and I baked her cookies. I dropped it off to her the weekend before Christmas and when I gave it to her, she said something like "You've been the light I was looking for all year." We hugged and I left. But yep, I cried for like 20 minutes on my ride home. Be kind. For everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. TL. DR. helped get an old lady back on her feet. A few weeks ago I sat at a subway station and was pretty drunk when a few meters away two guys started hitting on a girl. She was clearly uncomfortable and drunk but me had to step in. So I got up and walked over there and said, "Hey Zoe, how are you?" She understood what I was doing and played along. The guys went off and the girl and I rode the subway together until I had to get out. She thanked me and I never saw her again. The girl and I rode the subway together. I cannot keep up with you youngsters and your metaphors. Someone PM'd me recently to let me know that my Reddit posts on astronomy have inspired them to become an astronomer and major in physics at university next year. I think I'll ride that warm and fuzzy feeling for some time into the future. Love you bro. 3. If you PM me, I will talk to you about anything. It'll stay private. 2. Edit. So many messages. Now I know what it's like to be a hot chick on GW. Just watch. He's been copy-pasted all the messages in a private subreddit and in 3 months he will make it public and advertise it for all to see. I volunteered to donate bone marrow to an 8-year-old leukemia patient for Be the Match. Apparently the sample I gave several years ago was similar enough for them to want a more complete blood sample, so I had blood drawn a few weeks ago. I haven't heard back yet and chances are I won't be the final match, but I'm happy with myself for at least giving it a chance instead of ignoring it. I sat next to her old man in subway. We talked for an hour about all sorts. It was nothing major for me but he was delighted that I took an interest in some of the stuff he said. Old people love talking to others. Good job. On Christmas Eve I was doing my dutiful boyfriend task of buying Christmas presents for the girlfriend when I saw a homeless woman sat outside the shop boots, just to the ring. The people had been walking past her all day. She was just sat there, not asking for anything, not pestering anybody. Felt really bad that people were in there literally spending money on stocking fears and bits of tat for Christmas when this woman sat there, in the cold and rain. So I went in and bought her a couple of sandwiches, few bags of crisps and a hot drink. She was extremely grateful and kept saying Merry Christmas. Even after helping her out I still felt awful. I mentor kids from adverse backgrounds. Started as something my work introduced me to and I just got ridiculously into it. Seriously, if you are a white collar professional, please do this. It's incredible for both parties. The kid I'm currently mentoring is from a really rough borough in London and he has a very adverse home environment. Father in jail. Mother has serious health issues, so lives with his grandmother. He has no father figure and comes from a marginalized immigrant background. He had poor grades, bad behavior and other antisocial tendencies. I've been mentoring him for a while and he has made huge leaps, been behaving much better and heck even his grades are up. Now I'll be honest, if you actually give something to these kids and really try and work with them, you get quite attached to these guys. You start to see that you had so many advantages when you were growing up, and if it wasn't for this child's horrible circumstances, you and him are really not all that different. Makes you appreciate the level of hard work this kid has to do to even get to the starting block, let alone finish the race. Before you know it, you share in their little victories. He makes it to the first team in his school basketball league. You feel like he got picked up by the Lakers. Anyway, he really wanted a PS4 for Christmas. He had worked very hard this year and turns out his parents had promised him one. Anyway, through his social worker program Larson, I realized that this simply wasn't gonna happen and his parents were gonna make an excuse and get him something else. I was thinking how utterly disappointed he was going to be. He had told his friends that they could have FIFA tournaments. I got him a PS4 and gave it to his homeroom school teacher to give to him as a gift from Santa. She tells me he was incredibly excited and cried. Not gonna lie, there was a tiny amount of rain on my face the first time I played the PS4 with him. Ain't nobody gonna make my little champ become some jaded little guy. I'm crying. I went out to dinner and my fortune cookie said your current plans will be a success. I thought that was odd, saying as going to the Chinese buffet at 9 PM on a Saturday alone is generally anything but a success. Anyways, as I was leaving I saw a couple whose car wouldn't start. Asked if they wanted a jump and pulled up to do so. The guy didn't have jumper cables, but I always carry a set. Jumped started their car and had to refuse their money with a today you, tomorrow me. And with that my current plans were a success. That family got home without being nearly as inconvenienced had I not been there. Some weeks ago I saw a dude with a cardboard shield at the train station on my way home from work that said something like, "Help me, I'm from Romania and trusted the wrong people, who trafficked me to Switzerland for a job I didn't get. Can't speak German. I am hungry and have no idea how I should get back to my family." To put this in perspective, there are almost no homeless or beggars in Switzerland and people who are mostly choose to be. At first I ignored him and went home. Then I realized that the guy was at the train station in my very small village, so it was certain that he'd had no place to go to for the night, neither had a place to eat since every shop closes at 6 p.m. So I prepared some dinner and went back to the train station to eat with him. I don't like giving people money because God knows what they'll do with it. Luckily he was still there and I ate dinner with him and chatted a little bit about his story. Then I invited him home to crash at my place for a couple of days. This dude was really kind. He'd do the dishes and some housekeeping while I was working the following days. I always thought that he could steal everything and just disappear, but he didn't. A week later I organized him a bus ride to Romania for about $100. The guy literally poured his heart out on me and started crying when I told him. I'm still in contact with him and he has invited me to come and visit him and his family. At least something I feel good about doing in my life. I sponsored 4 needy homeless families for Christmas. Ended up spending about $2,500 on everything from toys and clothes and shoes to hygiene products and household items, to the 2 families who actually had a place to live outside a shelter, and groceries and medicine. When I took 3 truckloads of stuff to the managing director's office, she asked me to stay and give it to the families and meet them. I declined and wrote a simple note saying Merry Christmas, love Santa, I do okay in my life. I am not left wanting for anything and I have a solid career. I am able to live a life and provide a life for my wife and kids which many other people could only dream about. It was also an opportunity to teach my own kids to help good people who may not have the best life but are making the best of it. I gave one of my regulars at Starbucks a drink for free. She is this really nice regular, but she wasn't always that way. She used to be very short and just get her drink in the drive-thru. At first I didn't like her, but I realized that she was probably acting the way she was because she had no reason to act any other way, or she had been mistreated at some point by another barista. Anyways, one day I asked for her name and whenever I would hear her order in the drive-thru I would ask if it was her and I would be excited to see her. Over time she started greeting us all by name. So today, just because it's a new year, I gave her drink for free and said thank you for being such a good regular. But I want to hear more about how she got taller. I used to work at a major retail store. One day I found a random SD card on the ground outside the entrance doors. I decided to take it home to see if there was anything on it. There were hundreds of pictures that a family had taken. Vacations, their kids, stuff like that. I used context clues in the pictures to find out where the kids went to school and other identifying information. Called the school. They knew the family I was talking about. So I dropped the SD card off at the school so they could give it back to the family. Not really that great or anything, but it was the first thing I thought of and the family was very appreciative. Pictures are worth more than the money used for the trips and the cameras and such. Pictures are memories of good times, sad times, rough times, smooth times. The problem is time keeps on marching, so the act of freezing it for a family is worth more than anything else. You help them out way more than you can imagine. Volunteering at a disabled orphanage in Sri Lanka. Donated $600 worth of goods as well. Just trying to make up for all the times I'm in a. I don't usually bring it up, unless I'm chatting up chicks. Then I'll happily bring up it. Need all the help I can get in that department. That's the first step of the Dennis system. By talking about your volunteer work, you demonstrate your value to her. Next, you need to engage her physically. Well, I'm not sure how recent it has to be to count, but a few years ago a close friend of mine stopped showing up to school. He would skip day after day, and was in danger of failing all his classes, and dropping out of high school. So one morning, my then girlfriend and I decided we would get up early, and force him to go to school. Every day, we would knock on his door, ask his mom if we can give him a ride to school. She had been trying to get him to go, but he is incredibly stubborn. so I can understand why she had been unsuccessful. So after a few days of getting him to go to class, he stops getting in the car willingly, so I physically pull him out of bed for the next few weeks. He then starts waking up earlier than us so he can leave the house before we get there to make him go to school. Now, there's two things I know he does when he skips school. He plays his guitar, and he plays WoW. So I told his mom that I intend to steal his guitar and his keyboard, mouse, and monitor. She allowed us to do so. I told him he would not get them back until he went to school for a full month, and that I would take it again if he skipped class or failed. This seemed to work. He ended up graduating on time, and is now close to graduating from pharmacy school. You're a good friend. He might not have appreciated it at the time, but I bet he does someday. Delivered a couple of big batches of home-cooked food to a co-worker while her kid was in and out of the hospital. I knew she did not have the time or energy to cook for her 3 boys and her husband. This seems like such a small thing but is so huge. When my wife and I had our first baby, friends and family would bring by meals for the first week. It was honestly the best thing anyone could have done for us. Recently a friend had her sister unexpectedly pass away. My wife and I spent a week returning the favor and dropping off meals. My neighbor fell. She's an older lady. She gave me a call and I promptly rushed over to her house to help her up and do what I could for her. It turns out she had been sitting there since the previous night waiting to call me. I told her not to worry about the time of night or day ever again, that she could call me anytime if this ever happens again. I try to check on her a lot more since this has happened. I guarantee she still waits to call you next time, if it ever happens again. Old ladies are usually stubborn as heck but tough as nails. I bought my dog a New Year's Day steak. I haven't before seen such a look of pure, unadulterated joy as the look I saw in her eyes when she realized it was her steak. That was a happy goddamn dog. There's this kid who's kind of a bully at my school. He's really big and not very handsome, and he's always picking on people. Well, he left school 2 weeks before winter break. I figured he'd been suspended or something, so I didn't put much thought to it until the day he came back. Monday. He seemed sad, and he was sitting alone during breakfast. I was about to go sit with my usual crew, but thought twice and sat with him. We talked for the entirety of breakfast. It turns out he was gone because he had heart surgery and it took a long time to recover. It was a really good conversation, and it was shocking to find out this bully really was just a kid with some issues. You probably made his day. I work in a grocery store, and on Christmas Eve a man came through, obviously buying all the essentials for Christmas dinner. He's friendly and is in the store often. We exchanged the usual small talk. When it came time to pay, he couldn't find his wallet. He told me he had forgotten it at home and would go get it and be back if I could hold his groceries. I pulled out my bank card and paid for it and told him to go spend the holiday with his family. He cried and couldn't stop thanking me. He swore he'd pay me back. I told him that wasn't what I wanted, but that he can pay me back by helping others whenever he got the chance. Now he comes in every few days just to tell me how he's helped someone else and that he'll never forget me. His wife even came in and hugged me. I think I changed that man's life. My GF and I recently helped my ex-GF and her current BF. They were having problem with where they were living, so we got them from O to PA, moved them into my house, helped them get their insurance straight, got them food and all the necessities, and then we used some contacts to get them both jobs and gave them a decent Christmas and New Year's. I'd see how my past is with you. If I can be the preventative measure to stop someone I know from being on the street, I will do that. I've been there with no one to help and it sucked. Even the people who turned my back on me in that situation, I'd be there to help them not be homeless. Your current girlfriend gets a lot of credit for this. Imo. I am, or at least I try to be, an understanding and trusting person, but I would have had a hard time if and so had brought an ex into the house. No matter the circumstances, it would still be stressful. Just generally, I care for my disabled dad. He isn't the nicest person, and broke my mum's arm while drunk when I was a baby, which caused her to leave him. I buy him clothes and wash him and make him food while he shouts at me. It's about 60% his illness, but it's still upsetting and annoying. Just before Christmas he decided to rant about how disgusting I looked, and how I was an alcoholic, and he wanted to send me away to care. I'm an adult. It really upset me and I fricked off for 2 days knowing he could manage by himself. But then it was Christmas. Despite literally hating my father, I went to his rather than being with my friends, opened my grand total of 0 presents, and cooked him a meal, with turkey for him, despite my being vegetarian, and was a good daughter. Heck yeah me. I was in a similar situation. There may come a time when you decide that you've had enough. When that happens, you should leave. It's difficult to remember sometimes that you have to be first. This happened last year. I was at a DC Metro subway station in my car dropping off my dad so he could go into work. A small Hispanic woman with broken English approached me and desperately begged me for a ride. She said her sister was supposed to drive her to the local US immigration office 20 minutes ago but hadn't shown up and that she couldn't be late for her appointment to apply for citizenship. So I spent half an hour using my not that great Spanish skills to talk to her about her life and calm her down while driving her 2 cities over to the office. She told me about how she had a son my age who was born here, but she had immigrated from Guatemala to escape from poverty and was terrified of being deported and separated from her family. She was extremely nice and grateful when I dropped her off. I hope things worked out for her and that she's officially an American now. I won a TV in a raffle at work and gave it to my sister as her mom took hers away when she didn't agree to watch her younger brother while her mom was out partying. I also worked out a deal with my brother to give him my truck when he gets his license if he keeps his grades up and drops his attitude with our mom. I realize that doesn't seem like that much, but it was my first car and I inherited it from our grandpa when he passed. It means a lot to me. Together my wife and I make $300k a year. This past holiday, after company match, we donated $100k to charity. Feeling pretty good about that. Nothing really major, but it's the simple things that can make all the difference. Coming home from work one morning, I was standing at the station waiting for my train when I noticed an older gentleman beside me panicking. I figured he was maybe just anxious about his train arriving on time. Few minutes later the ticket attendant came around asking if anyone needed tickets, and when he reached the old man he was borderline in tears saying he couldn't find his money. I felt really bad for the old guy and bought his fare for him. I don't think I've ever seen anyone be so grateful for such a simple act. Last night I was eating some pistachios. With all bags of pistachios, you will get a small amount of sealed shells. Instead of throwing out the unopenable pistachios, I saved them and gave them to a squirrel this morning. It was the beginning of December and I was checking out a local pizza place. I frequently dine alone because I enjoy just sitting down at a table, relaxing and eating at my leisure without having to converse with anyone. I was sitting by the window and saw a group coming in to eat. It was a middle-aged family with their aged and disabled grandfather. He had trouble walking and needed the assistance of a walker. As I was eating my food, I was listening to their conversation and was thinking about my grandfather who had passed away. I was poor growing up and didn't start making good money until he had passed away. I never got to buy him a meal, so I decided to pay for this family's meal. Stopped by the counter on the way out and told the cashier I wanted to pay for them and also left them a 100% tip on the meal. Holy frick, that's actually quite generous. I like to think I would do that, but I'm not sure I would. You're a better person than I. I volunteer about 10-15 hours of my week with a non-profit local political activism group. My friends and I started to petition the city governments to make positive changes. In the past year we've expanded bus service, gotten hourly city employees a raise, gotten more bike lanes and sidewalks created, and pushed our city council and mayor to demand that the state government adopt the Medicaid expansion that we're already paying for. It's fun and I've made a lot of friends. This is the best way to make friends. I wish I could convince every lonely person out there to do something similar. My wife and I met while we were both doing volunteer work. Working there was the best, smartest thing I have ever done. Plus I learned a lot. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.